Hello. Hi. Good afternoon. So, before we begin, we've heard about digital and innovation and disruption. So I just thought I'll start with a little analog observation between our panelists here today. Do you know the uniqueness of why both of you are here today? It's the number 17. You know why? So you subtract 17 from 2016, it's 1999. Does that ring a bell? So both, he started Mindtree in 1999, he joined Cisco in 1999. But the relevance to 17 really doesn't end there. If you subtract 17 from 1999, is 1982. You know what that is? That's when you joined Wipro. So I just saw the numbers. So with that little analog reference,
I hope after that, Ayan, you're not going to say with all these numbers, people are going to get lunch in a digital or number-oriented way.
So what we thought was we'll keep the conversation very real. And in many different ways, if you look at Amit and KK, they represent two different parts of the ecosystem. They are a global leader, absolute global leader as far as the infrastructure and stack is concerned. And that is rapidly growing digital. And then KK is building this billion-dollar organizations, which is in the application space. So what I thought was, we'll start with Amit, to give a quick introduction of what they are seeing on the digital front. What are their customers saying? What are their competitors saying? And then we'll move on to KK. And you can introduce what you do.
All right. Thanks, Ayan. I don't know whether I should introduce what Cisco does, but we basically are the world leaders from a networking communication standpoint, and we believe that we are leading this whole sort of digitization journey at this point, right? From our standpoint, I think last 3-4 years have been phenomenal because this word digitization, in fact, we sort of started investigating, what does this really mean? How do you actually have a conversation with the customer? Because it's everywhere, every industry, every vertical, every function, everywhere there is a discussion about digitization. So simply put, right, from our standpoint, the way we look at it is digital is the medium through which the physical gets abstracted into virtual space, right? And digitization is the process by which you create a linkage between the virtual and the physical space, so that you get deeper visibility and you can convert that into, business parameters, business success, so on and so forth. But what we are seeing because of digitization in the marketplace is that the conversations have completely and dramatically changed for us with our customers. So there are 2 or 3 trends that we are seeing overall. First of all, when we look at solutions in digital space, we are looking at disruptions happening from players who are completely outside of the domain, right? So you're looking at, there is obviously examples of Uberization and Airbnb and all of those, which are very clear, right? That players who are actually disrupting the incumbents are coming from very different domains and using digital as a technology to actually make that happen. So that's one thing that we are looking at. The second thing that we are seeing happening in the marketplace is, what are the customers really asking for? There are 2 things that we see being most often asked from us or from digitization as a process. The first is what we call the supply side. The second is the demand side. Let me explain a little bit what this is, right? A lot of customers are looking at digitization and the visibility that it gives them and the automation that's possible because of that to actually reduce their OpEx, one way or the other, right? Can I reduce the cost of doing my business so that I can actually continue to make margins or increase the margins that I have at this point in time? The second is increasing the outcome or what we call the demand side. Can I use digitization to get a much better visibility into my processes as well as into the market to actually increase my top line, right? So those are 2 fundamental conversations that we are having. The second thing that it's doing to us from a business standpoint is whom we are talking to, right? We used to talk to the IT teams and we continue to talk to the IT teams, but we are more and more talking to the lines of businesses because they want us to participate in the outcome discussion as much as in the infrastructure conversation. So I think that those are some of the things that we are seeing changing dramatically over the last 2-3 years for us.
Excellent. KK?
I think we have a little interesting perspective because one, as an organization, we need to start adopting digital. And many times the customers expect us to be smart and more knowledgeable than them to help them in that digital transformation journey. So let me try and bring in both the perspectives on what digital is about. I think today a lot is talked about digital, and that elephant means different things to different people. But if I were to give or make a statement that digital probably encompasses every change in every enterprise, I think it's more or less becoming true. It's no more just a question of technology or using technologies like internet, social, mobility, analytics to deliver an outcome. It's extending into your devices, sensors, which could be called the IoT world, to artificial intelligence, to machine learning, and so on. So I would rather say there's a small exclusion of what is not digital. Now coming to where is it people are thinking about starting the transformation, I see 4 key themes in the whole transformation journey. One is obviously what you and me experience every year, when it is to really improve your customer or consumer experience. I'm sure many of us in the audience and people like me who are on the wrong side of 50, 30 years back would have stood 1 hour in the train station queue to book a ticket. How many of us have really done it after IRCTC in the last 5 years? That's again a digital consumer experience, which is something which every one of the enterprises with whom we are working with are saying, how do I improve the experience of my consumer? The second theme, which I see very common, is what Amit sort of talked about, is how do I improve efficiency? Because everybody wants to be more agile. The new world is about saying, how am I going to react quickly? How am I going to make my organization far more smart, efficient, and be effective? So how do I digitize process to improve efficiency, which could be internal or the way in which I engage both with my partner as well as my customer ecosystem. But the whole notion of how do I digitize process and drive my change to be a more agile organization. The third aspect is really linked to that. In digitizing, a lot of data gets generated. Today an e-commerce company or a search company like Google knows far more about what we do than what we would know about ourselves. So how do I use this data in a real-time manner to help my execs take the right decisions to either enhance my consumer experience or improve top line? So that's really the third theme which I see. And the last thing, which I think again is a holy grail, every company wants to change its business to a more digitally driven business model. Because obviously everyone is fascinated by the market cap of a Uber or a Flipkart, and every company which is in the logistics business wants to have a market cap of probably $50 billion. So how do I really change my business model? And many times they look to service providers like us, and I must be honest, we don't have a clue on how to make that change, but that's becoming more a theme. So if I were to look across, I think these are 4 simplistic themes which I see boards of companies getting bothered about. While I think there is that set of concerns saying, are we going to get left behind by this? But it's increasingly becoming a conversation at the board level saying, how am I going to get through this transformation drought? And that's really what I see.
So that on that note, while we talk about boards, by the way, if there are any questions after this, please raise your hands and we'll take them as they come. So talk about boards a bit. You had the opportunity of meeting senior executives and board members. Obviously, they're extremely worried about what's going on and they're getting disrupted. But how are you, as a supplier, in the sense of the word, in many different ways, repositioning yourself to address to those needs? Because it is dynamic, it's digital, it's a whole ecosystem that you are now selling as opposed to a service line selling. So how are you preparing for such meetings? And I think it might be valuable to share those thoughts. Shall I go for, yeah, please.
See, I think the challenge which you're facing is, honestly, as a service provider, I don't think we're adequately ready to meet the needs of what our customers are demanding. So the first mindset which you're trying to change within our organization is, we may not be smart enough to know all the solutions or the problem statements which the clients are demanding. So we need to start engaging with people who may be smarter than us, or probably the startup ecosystem, which is really building solutions which could address a problem of the customer. So the first sort of dictum in the company is, I think we need to look beyond us to look at how do we solve the problem with the customer. The type of engagement also this conversations we have is very different. Today, we don't have a customer who's telling us saying, you know what, I have this existing solution. I need to reduce the cost of managing, supporting it. So can you take this work away and do it with higher quality, cheaper costs? That game for the IT industry of India is gone. I think today's customers come to you with a problem statement which may not make any meaning to you. Like, I'll share with you an example of a large hospitality customer with whom we work with, where the problem statement of the CEO was, my biggest profit-making segment is my business traveler, particularly people who conduct conferences in my hotel. And this is the feedback which I've got from the customer satisfaction survey. What can we do to make these people more engaged with this company, and so that they bring in more conferences, they use our hotels more? That led to something which we would have never done as an IT services company, which means we started tracking key business travelers in terms of their stress levels the moment they leave their home to the time they sort of come to the hotel, which sort of led to some technology solutions, which led to partnerships with companies which we may have never thought about. So the key element which I am trying to sort of bring in within my organization is, one, for our teams to be more collaborative in building problem statements along with our customers. So it's no more what I call an order-taking industry, but primarily an order-making industry where we are collaborating with customers to define the problem and to find. And in solving the problem, don't do everything yourself. Work and build a network of ecosystem which will help you solve the problem. I think that's how conversations are changing.
So Amit, before, let me frame the question in a little different way. One of the things we heard yesterday was that how can the Indian, the GICs contribute and add more value, and it was one of the themes of the keynotes that we spoke. And the other was, how do we work in an ecosystem? So when, I was just talking to Amit, and it's a little known fact that Cisco today, worldwide revenues, almost $12 billion of revenues are contributed directly by products out of Cisco. That's number one. Number two, there are 10 startups, thoughts and products originating out of Cisco India, which are giving more than $100 million of revenue each product. So in that context of innovation, in the context of digital, can you just share with us what are the things that you really did rightly so that you've achieved all of this?
So first of all, right, just continuing what KK said, I think the conversation definitely is changing, right? And I think whether it is a board level or whether it's at the exec level, there is a lot of focus on outcome-based discussion. So the entire conversation is outcome-based. It's not technology-based anymore, right? It's not about what this particular technology can do, what's the line speed and feed, what's the manageability infrastructure and things like that. Now for us, we talk to two stakeholders typically. We talk to the IT side of the house. We also talk to the business side of the house. On both the sides, from our perspective, we first of all see a lot of data, right? Being in the networking business, data flows on our infrastructure. We see a lot of networking data. We also see a lot of data that can be very relevant to the business. And interestingly, the conversations that are happening, let's first talk about the IT side of the house, whether it is large service providers or whether it's large enterprises. The conversations that are happening are about how can I decrease the complexity? How can I decrease the OpEx? How can I use real-time telemetry, real-time data and analytics to achieve this particular function so that we achieve it at a cost that is absorbable by the business, right? And more interestingly, more and more customers are coming forward and saying, can we co-develop this solution? We're willing to participate with you in actually co-developing the solution, which will be directly fitting into our organization. I think we are preparing our organization to that. We have done that successfully over the last 1 or 2 years, but we also need to make sure that the leadership is able to actually take those conversations up and translate that into things that can be actually executed of the business.
Can you give a quick example?
Yep. So actually, we are talking to service providers in this region. Almost all of the service providers have a problem that the complexity of the networks have grown over a period of time. Typically, a service provider spends 70% of their total budget on managing their existing networks. 30% is available for expansion. Their OpEx is going down year on year. So the ask of us is, can we actually release about 10% of their total, right, from an OpEx perspective by significantly automating in real time? And that requires, telemetry, that requires, digitization, obviously.
Disrupting your own business.
It's absolutely, it is, right? And it requires co-developing those manageability solutions using data analytics, artificial intelligence, machine learning, type of algorithms and things like that. So that's one conversation that's happening. But the other conversation that's happening is for example, in retail space, right? The conversation is not about, deploying wireless technology and giving access to potential customers. The conversation is about, can we use a lot more analytics? Can we use location technology? Can we use identity information? Can we use redirection technologies? Can we connect to the social media to give a lot more deeper insights into what's really happening on my shop floor, correct? What's the density of people at different points in time? Where are they spending time? How much time are they spending? Is it really resulting into, business transactions? And how can we improve the conversion between footfalls and actual transaction that's happening in the retail store? And can we use, Wi-Fi technology, or can we use locationing and identity technology and connect with the social media to get those deeper insights into, the overall business from a retailer perspective? Now, this is a very interesting conversation, because in this conversation, when you're on the table, you need a domain expert, you need a technology expert, and you need a business expert from a go-to-market perspective to participate in this conversation and co-develop a solution for the customer. Now, coming to your other part of the question, what is it that we have done over a period of time? I think we have invested heavily over the last few years in the organization so that the senior technologists in the company are having a lot more closer conversations with the customer base. We are also getting a lot more insights into what the customers really need. And the approach that we are using is that in many cases, rather than taking a product that's made for a US or Europe and then beating it down to the requirements that are there in this particular region, can you actually look at that particular requirement completely grounds up and build a product grounds up for this particular region? And this is where I think we have succeeded heavily. Every single time we have done that, what we have seen is that we have not only been able to create a product for the India market or for emerging countries, but those products, without exception, have been globally very, very successful. Because essentially you end up doing a much better job of usability, you end up doing a much better job of manageability, you end up doing a much better job of robustness of that product, because you're actually deploying this product in conditions that are very, very harsh compared to US or Europe.
So it is the theme of customer experience and smartness and stuff like that. Quickly, any questions? Anybody, any hands before we wrap up? Good. So I'll end with the last question, a little more open-ended. What does the future look like? We'll start with you, KK, and then we can get to Amit. What do you think the future is for all of us?
I'm going to make what I believe in and a little controversial sort of thing. I think the future is great for small and medium-sized companies, because this is a world which are moving in, where the solutions and deployment of that, it needs to be very custom built. So even if you look at an area like industrial IoT, which is coming up fast, the company which is giving a run for the money for a company like GE is a Bangalore-based startup called Futura Digital System. So I think the opportunity is great for many in the audience. And will somebody completely disrupt Cisco's business? I think they will.
Oh, wow. now we are getting hotter.
No, I think we are getting ready to sort of not get disrupted, but get disrupted in a positive way. But I think, from a digitization, to some extent, I agree with Ayan that this is, with KK, that this is, first of all, digitization is going to be a big equalizer, right? There is absolutely no doubt about it. The second thing is, for any incumbent, the disruption is going to come from the left field, in the sense, it's going to come from domains that are outside of the current domains, right? So there are going to be digital disruptors who will disrupt the incubators. And this has already happened in some of the industries, including hospitality, in a very big way in different parts of the world. But I think it's a, it's a combination of two things. It's a huge equalizer in business. Anybody can disrupt, and most likely disruptions are going to happen, through people who are non-incumbents in a non-incumbent industry. But I think that's also a very good opportunity for incumbents if they open themselves up and create ecosystems rather than trying to solve the problem themselves. Digitalization is also a place where I think the next 10 years will see a consortium model of solving problems in a much bigger way than what we have seen in the past decade or so. So I would say huge equalizer, big opportunities, but needs a very different approach to the market compared to what we have done in the last 10 years.
Absolutely. Well, folks, we're end of the time, but I think in many ways, this is a fitting end to the keynotes because we've discussed innovation, we've discussed disruption, we discussed ecosystem, and we have two global leaders here who practice this in their daily lives. They win business and they execute business, and it resonates exactly with the themes that we talked about in our sessions yesterday. Well, thank you very much. It was
Thank
a pleasure to have you with us.